What up, Viking fans? And thank you for tuning in to the Skol State of Mind podcast. As you already know, I'm your host, D Woods. So let's talk about one of the biggest topics of discussion surrounding the internet and a lot of social media platforms right now. And y'all already know what it is, Kirk Cousins. So reports circling all over the place that Kirk Cousins will be considering signing with the Atlanta Falcons in free agency. Now, I'm going to break it down a little bit and let you know how I really feel about this news surrounding Kirk Cousins. So, first off, I think about it like this: there comes a time when teams have to move on from certain players. Now, I'm not going to get on here and say Kirk Cousins is a bad quarterback or a bad player, however you want to look at it. I just think about it like this: Kirk Cousins has been the starting quarterback of our Minnesota Vikings for the past 6 seasons. And we've only been able to make the playoffs with him 2 times, and we only got one playoff win within those 2 times. Now, considering Kirk Cousins is coming off a major injury with his torn Achilles, and he's already like 36 years old, I don't think it's really in the Minnesota Vikings' best interest to overpay for an aging quarterback that's coming off of a major injury. Now, we really don't know how Kirk Cousins' body is going to respond, to the rehab or what kind of player he's going to be down the line. But just like I said before, there comes times when teams have to move on from certain players. And I feel like now is the time that the Minnesota Vikings should move on from Kirk Cousins. Now, if you look at the draft, depending on where the Minnesota Vikings will be drafting, because they do have the ability to trade up in the draft and draft a player, in the top 5 picks if they can pull off a trade with somebody. But currently, they have the 11th pick in the draft. And maybe a guy like a J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix Jr., because I feel like the Minnesota Vikings need to look to the future and draft the quarterback of the future. If we continue to keep, circling this bin with Kirk Cousins, we're going to be in the same situation we've been in for the past 6 seasons. We're good, but not great. We're just a mediocre team. Now, let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Atlanta Falcons might be a great place for Kirk Cousins to take his talents. I mean, the reports, throughout the week have been basically saying that other teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Denver Broncos are not that interested, and the Atlanta Falcons is the number one choice in free agency for Kirk Cousins. Hey, do it. I mean, I wish Kirk Cousins the best, but I'm not finna sit here and say like, oh, the Minnesota Vikings are not going to be the same, but it's just time to move on. That's just how I look at it. It's time to move on from Kirk Cousins. We need a young quarterback of the future, and you have to really think about it like this from a salary cap standpoint. Are you willing to be paying Kirk Cousins 30 plus million for the next 2-3 seasons when you already have to negotiate a contract extension for Justin Jefferson, and you're going to be paying him at least 30 plus million a season? And just add those 2 contracts together, that's about 60 million every year for 2 players on offense. And you guys already know how many holes we have on this defense. So I feel like the time is the right time for the Minnesota Vikings to move on from Kirk Cousins. I feel like Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah really has the brass to basically move on, because I really feel like Kwesi has set his price in stone and he's not moving from it. And that's kind of the reason why we're hearing a lot of these rumblings in the media about Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta. I feel like that's come from the Kirk Cousins camp, who's basically trying to, push the narrative and push Kwesi's buttons. But I think Kwesi, he gonna stay firm in what he believe in, and he's trying to build this team for the future. And I understand that he really tried last year to trade up in the draft and get a top quarterback. So why not wouldn't he do it this season? So, I mean, that's pretty much all I can say about it. With the reports that has been coming in, I'm probably going to be dropping way more videos, when I get more information. But thank you guys for tuning in with me. And you already know how I end every show. Skol, baby.